hiking through the shimmering dunes of White Sands National Park, New Mexico, under a blazing sun. The ground beneath you sparkles like snow, but it's not sand you're walking on, it's the ancient remnants of a lost world. Deep in this desert, scientists uncovered something that stopped them in their tracks. Human footprints frozen in time, older than the pyramids, older than Stonehenge, possibly the oldest evidence of humans in the Americas. These aren't just footprints, they're a time machine pulling us back 23,000 years to a moment when our ancestors first stepped onto this continent. Who were they? How did they get here? And why does this discovery turn everything we thought we knew about human history upside down? Stick with me for the next hour, because we're diving into a story that's as thrilling as it is groundbreaking, and by the end you'll see the past in a whole new light. Hit that subscribe button, grab a snack, and let's uncover the mystery of the White Sands footprints. Every so often, a discovery comes along that forces us to rewrite the history books. The footprints at White Sands National Park are one of those moments. Found in 2009 by park rangers, these impressions in the earth aren't just marks in the mud. They're a snapshot of human life from a time when woolly mammoths and giant sloths roamed the Americas. Dated between 2,700 and 23,000 years ago, they push back the timeline of human arrival in the Americas by thousands of years, challenging long-held beliefs about when and how people first reached this continent. Why should you care? Because this isn't just about dusty old footprints. It's about us, our origins, our resilience, and our shared human story. These tracks belong to men, women, and children who braved an Ice Age world to explore a new frontier. They're a reminder that humans have always been explorers, pushing into the unknown, adapting to challenges, and leaving their mark. In this video, we'll explore the science behind the discovery, the debates it's sparked, and what it tells us about the first Americans. I'll also share some personal stories and modern parallels to bring this ancient tale to life, plus a lesson at the end that might just change how you see the world. Let's get started. Imagine being a park ranger in 2009, patrolling the vast, otherworldly landscape of White Sands National Park. You're near Alkali Flat, a dry lake bed that once held a massive prehistoric lake. You notice strange impressions in the ground, and odd shapes that don't quite look like the animal tracks you're used to. Could they be from Ice Age creatures like mammoths or saber-toothed cats? You call in the experts, and what they find blows everyone away. These are human footprints perfectly preserved in the ancient mud. Unlike bones or tools, footprints are rare in archaeology. They're fragile, easily erased by wind or water. Yet here they were, capturing a moment in time. Researchers saw tracks of adults, some carrying heavy loads, and smaller ones from children, maybe playing or running through the mud. One set even shows someone slipping their toes digging into the earth, a human moment frozen for millennia. It's like stumbling across a photo album from 23,000 years ago, each step telling a story of survival and exploration. How do we know these footprints are so old? Scientists use multiple methods to pin down their age. And this is where the story gets fascinating. In 2021, a team from the University of Arizona published a study using radiocarbon dating, which measures the decay of carbon-14 in organic material. They tested tiny seeds of ditch grass, a water plant found in the same layers as the footprints. The results: the tracks were between 21,000 and 23,000 years old, way older than most archaeologists expected. Some scientists were skeptical. Ditch grass grows underwater, and water can carry old carbon from ancient rocks, making plants seem older than they are. It's like setting your clock back 1,000 years before you start timing something. To address this, the team tried another method in 2023 called optically stimulated luminescence, or OSL. This technique checks when minerals in the sediment, like quartz, were last exposed to sunlight. They also dated pollen from pine trees, which avoids the old carbon problem since trees pull carbon from the air. Both methods lined up perfectly with the earlier dates. Fast forward to June 2025, and a new study sealed the deal. Researchers drilled core samples, long tubes of earth, from the site, analyzing mud pollen and seeds in independent labs. They got 55 radiocarbon dates, all clustering between 2,700 and 22,400 years ago. As one scientist put it, the chances of all these tests being wrong are astronomically low. This isn't just a discovery, it's a scientific triumph showing how persistence and multiple lines of evidence can rewrite history. What strikes me about this is the sheer curiosity that drove this discovery. Those park rangers could have walked past those impressions assuming they were nothing special, but they stopped questioning and called in the experts. It reminds me of how breakthroughs often start with someone asking, "What if?" In our fast-paced world, we're often too busy to notice the details around us. But this story shows that pausing to wonder can change everything. It's a lesson I try to apply in my own life, whether I'm exploring a new topic or just noticing something unusual in my day-to-day. To understand these footprints, we need to step into the world where they were made. Around 23,000 years ago, Earth was in the grip of the last glacial maximum, the coldest phase of the Ice Age. Massive ice sheets blanketed much of North America's sea levels were 400 feet lower, and vast land bridges connected continents. The area around White Sands wasn't a frozen wasteland, though it was a thriving wetland fed by Lake Otero, a massive paleo lake. Picture a landscape of lush grasses, coniferous trees, and roaming herds of camels, dire wolves, and giant armadillos. It was a paradise for hunter-gatherers offering food, water, and opportunity. These early humans were likely nomadic, traveling in small bands of 20 or 30 people. They hunted game, gathered plants, and adapted to a world teeming with life and danger. The footprints show us their daily lives, adults walking purposefully, perhaps tracking prey, and children leaving playful, scampering tracks. It's a vivid reminder that these weren't just ancient people. They were families, communities, people like us navigating a new world. The big question is, how did humans reach White Sands 23,000 years ago? For decades, archaeologists pointed to the Bering Land Bridge, a strip of land connecting Siberia to Alaska when sea levels were lower. Called Beringia, it was opened between 30,000 and 15,000 years ago, offering a pathway for early migrants. These people, descendants of Asian populations, might have followed herds of mammoths or bison trekking inland through gaps in the ice sheets. But there's another theory gaining traction: the Kelp Highway. Imagine small groups of people in simple boats hugging the Pacific coast from Asia to the Americas. The coastal waters were rich with fish, seals, and seaweed, providing a reliable food source. This route could have been faster than walking, letting people reach southern regions like White Sands much earlier. Recent evidence, like ancient coastal sites, supports this idea, painting a picture of seafaring explorers who were far more adaptable than we once thought. To make this ancient story feel real, let's look at a modern parallel. Meet Sarah, a friend of mine who spent a year living with nomadic herders in Mongolia. These herders move with their livestock across vast steppes, following ancient routes to find water and grazing land. Sarah told me how they carry everything they need: tents, tools, food, in small, portable bundles. They don't leave much behind, just like the White Sands people who left only footprints. One day, Sarah watched a young boy, maybe 8 years old, run through the mud after a rainstorm, laughing as he left tracks behind. It hit her this was exactly what those Ice Age children might have done. The herders' tools, like knives and ropes, were precious, never left carelessly, which echoes why we don't find artifacts at White Sands. Sarah's story reminds us that the instincts of exploration, play, and survival are timeless, connecting us to those ancient footprints. What I love about this part of the story is how it highlights human resilience. Whether these people crossed a land bridge or paddled along the coast, they faced unimaginable challenges: frigid winters, dangerous animals, and an unknown landscape. Yet they thrived, finding ways to hunt, gather, and build communities. It makes me think about how we adapt today, whether it's tackling climate change or navigating new technologies. The White Sands people show us that humans have always been problem solvers, and that gives me hope for our future. Not everyone's convinced about the White Sands footprints. Some scientists argue the radiocarbon dates might still be off, even with the 2025 study. They point out that Lake Otero's mud could contain old carbon skewing results. Others ask, where are the tools, campsites, or bones? Later sites, like those of the Clovis people from 13,000 years ago, are packed with spear points and butchered animal remains. At White Sands, we have footprints, but no artifacts. Vance Holliday, a researcher on the White Sands team, has an answer. Hunter-gatherers were meticulous with their tools. Far from stone sources, they wouldn't leave valuable items in a muddy wetland. It's a solid point, but the lack of artifacts keeps the debate alive. I get the skepticism. Science thrives on questioning, but the multiple dating methods and consistent results make a strong case for the footprint's age. The White Sands discovery is part of a bigger shift in how we see the America's past. For years, the Clovis people were thought to be the first Americans, arriving around 13,000 years ago, with their distinctive fluted spear points. But new sites are pushing the timeline back. In Chile, the Monte Verde site, dated to 14,500 years ago, shows evidence of seaweed use in wooden structures. In Idaho, Cooper's Ferry has 16,000-year-old tools. In Mexico, Chiquihuite Cave might hold 30,000-year-old stone flakes, though that's still debated. These finds suggest the Americas were buzzing with human activity far earlier than we thought. The White Sands footprints are a cornerstone of this new narrative, showing that people were here during the Ice Age, living alongside megafauna and adapting to a changing world. It's not just about dates, it's about reimagining the human story in the Americas. Let's bring this closer to home with another story. Meet John, a retiree in Texas who spends his weekends hunting for arrowheads. A few years ago, he stumbled across a site near his home that turned out to have 500-year-old tools, some of the oldest in North America. John wasn't a scientist, but his passion for history led him to contact archaeologists who confirmed the find. His discovery added to the growing evidence of early human presence, much like White Sands. John's story shows how ordinary people can contribute to science. It also reminds me of the White Sands Rangers, whose curiosity sparked a global conversation. These moments when everyday folks connect with the past make archaeology feel alive and accessible, not just something for academics in lab coats. The debate over White Sands fascinates me because it shows how science works. It's messy, full of arguments and counter-arguments, but that's how we get closer to the truth. The footprints challenge old assumptions, forcing us to rethink the Clovis first model. But they also raise bigger questions. What else are we missing? Are there older sites waiting to be found? I think the lack of artifacts at White Sands isn't a flaw, it's a clue. These people were careful, resourceful, and maybe even reverent about their tools, leaving us only their footprints as a legacy. The White Sands footprints aren't just a scientific milestone. They're a window into our shared humanity. These tracks belong to people who laughed, struggled, and dreamed just like we do. They show us that exploration is in our DNA, whether it's crossing a land bridge, paddling a boat, or launching a rocket to Mars. They also remind us that our understanding of the past is always evolving, shaped by new discoveries and fresh perspectives. Here's the lesson I want you to take away: embrace the unknown. The White Sands people didn't have maps or GPS, but they ventured into a new world with courage and curiosity. Today, we face our own unknowns: climate crises, technological shifts, global challenges. Like those early Americans, we can adapt, innovate, and keep moving forward. The next time you're faced with uncertainty, think of those footprints and take that first step. What do you think about the White Sands footprints? Do you believe humans reached the Americas 23,000 years ago? And how do you think they got here, by boat or across the land bridge? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And let's keep this conversation going. If you enjoyed this deep dive, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more stories from the past that shape our future. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.